the person has to believe that it's going to work. And if it's not going to believe it's going to work with you, then you have to let them see someone else. Exactly. Yeah. There's nothing magical out there. Yes. I think as young people, we're very resistant to hearing that. Taught to kind of deal with stuff. Someone believes that this treatment's going to work. Yeah. It is more likely to work. Research tells us that, which is mind-blowing. Okay. The biggest thing for me that we don't do enough of is sleep. We don't help everyone. Yeah.
In this episode, we get to meet Zach, who's a professional in the healthcare and medical field.
Well, Zach, welcome. Thank you so much for joining.
No worries, mate.
And thanks for making the time. What do you do? And your journey thus far, that's okay.
So I'm a physiotherapist. I'm from Australia.
Yep.
I've been here about 7 months now.
Yep.
Work-wise, I worked mostly in private sort of settings, so private clinics.
Yep.
Did a lot of sport and like sports coverage in Australia. So mostly football, rugby, fair bit of field hockey, a fair bit of that in Australia as well.
Okay.
So mostly that kind of stuff. And I've come over 7 months ago now.
The million-dollar question is what triggered the move from sunny Australia to nice, wonderful UK?
It wasn't exactly on the cards for me, but my partner is a big traveller, so she did a lot when she was younger.
Okay.
And when we kind of got together, she was like, we're going to do this.
Yep.
So she basically convinced me. It was never really on the cards.
Yep.
And the whole point was just to travel, to see new places, to make that easy, because Australia is so hard.
Yeah.
To see stuff. Like, we're literally 30 hours if you get a crap layover to get to Europe. And then we got New Zealand and Indonesia as the closest one, which are great, but there's not that many options.
Obviously, just what's been your first impressions of being in the UK specifically? How's it been for you in London thus far?
London is very fun, very full of opportunity, which is great.
Yep.
There's definitely a difference in culture and the big emphasis on working harder than what I would expect. Expect's the wrong word. Than I'm used to. Generally, it's been great. It's been great. There's just a lot of things that we don't have here. Like you can kind of name it, and you can go and do that here. We don't have any sun. No sun yet. Still waiting for the sun here.
You do have some patches.
Yeah. No, to be fair, it was amazing when we first got it. So we got it in June, July.
Right.
And that was great.
Yeah.
So I'm complaining. Yeah. But I can't complain. Everyone warned me, and then here it happens, and then I'm having to suck about it. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
Brilliant. No, good to hear. Good to hear. How have you found the people here in London in comparison to Australia? And you can be honest, it's okay.
I think, and this is such a stereotype.
Yeah.
Australians are really laid back.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah.
But I think that it also means that we don't have much urgency to do anything, right?
Yeah.
We kind of float through life and just do the same thing, and we're sort of happy and content with that.
Okay.
Whilst you guys are a lot more make stuff happen, go out and do it, which is great, but it makes you more intense, but that's fine.
Yeah.
But it means, there's just different paths speak for everyone, but a lot of Australians will happily just go do their job, see their mates on the weekends, and do that until they die.
Yeah, which is not wrong. Which is absolutely fine.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
But I think there's more of an urgency to kind of do different stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And that might be because the opportunity's there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, brilliant. That's good to know. And so the next one really is now coming back to sports and profession. What I'm interested in is what got you into this field. A very interesting field, I personally find. What got you into it, and how's it been going for you thus far?
So I always had a passion for sport, mostly, and that's kind of what got me into it.
Yeah.
I think that's most of physiotherapy is, full of people that were sporty when they were younger.
Yeah.
I think that probably in the last couple of years, it's been less about the sport aspect, but more about the people aspect.
Oh, really?
That I like the most.
Okay.
we treat injuries as physiotherapists, and that's kind of what we're known to do. But it has definitely, the interest for me has been the difference that one injury for one person, something might mean something completely different to another, and that's what makes it interesting. The psychological aspect of all of these injuries are becoming such a massive thing, and how it influences how treatment goes and outcomes and that type of stuff. And that to me is really interesting, because I don't actually find like the anatomy and all that type of really nitty-gritty sciencey stuff that interesting. But it's more about like the people,
the journey, the person and the journey it actually goes through, and how the person comes in. That's really interesting for me personally, is that we only seem to realise the importance of health when we need to see, especially when it's basically too late, right? And also, like, the other thing I find, that coming back to what you're saying about the general well-being, I find that it's like, especially as young people, it's all about career, all about doing well. But then when you then realise actually having a great career is great, but it's actually not that meaningful if I don't get there with good health. How have you, like, what's your view on that in terms of being generally healthy and trying to keep a balanced lifestyle?
I think as young people, we're very resistant to hearing that, to hearing about health, and I think most of that is, unfortunately, being healthy and doing all those things and eating well and exercising. It's not cool. It's not sexy. Sport is those things, great, but outside of that, I don't think there's. I think the messages are hard to get through to younger people.
Because I've got I have a very close friend of mine, very successful, done really well in trading, but he's in his mid-30s and he's like, oh gosh, you don't want to know the troubles I'm going through, the health, but every morning I wake up with something new. That's quite sad to hear. And obviously I've had my fair share of injuries. So it's just trying to make sure that you're aware of not trying to fall down that pathway for you know.
And it is about taking some responsibility to sort things out when they happen, and not letting them become a really big problem. And unfortunately, we get taught to kind of deal with stuff, and it works really well for a lot of people till they reach like 20-25 years old. And then all of these things start to become a problem. I'm not sure whether that coincides with like working age, where we start to get more stress in our life. We maybe don't sleep as well, and those parts of our lives become not a priority. So we kind of just, all these things fall down the list. We do have a lot of people that use exercise as a coping mechanism. So that basically goes from, I do 10, maybe 12 hours of sitting each day, to really intense exercise, which often doesn't mix really well. So we kind of have that kind of ends of the spectrum, people that do so much because they're using it to cope. And then we have people on the other end that do really nothing because all of their energy goes into their work.
What actually keeps you motivated, Matt? What motivates you?
It's helping people better. Like, I know that's a really bad way of putting it, but it's basically being better at helping people. And like, unfortunately, we don't help everyone. And we always have, not to say necessarily failures, but some people don't get better like we want them to. And that sucks, no matter who you are, if you're a doctor or a physiotherapist or whoever you are working in health. It sucks. Nobody wants to have their patients come back to them and go, it's not working. And some people go down really tough paths, and you always want to be the person that can help them, and sometimes it doesn't. But what motivates me to continue to sort of educate myself and try and be better is because I want less and less of that happening. You're never going to be perfect, but the pursuit of something you can never be perfect at, but you can always be better.
So it's actually the thought of actually trying to help people genuinely make a difference in people's lives.
Yeah.
Is what keeps you going. What would the advice be to your younger self?
It would be to do stuff like this earlier.
Oh, really?
Okay. Not that I feel that old.
Yeah.
But I think that, like I touched on before, you can get very much in a comfort zone.
Yeah.
Because like you're reasonably happy, and that's fine. But you do miss a lot of stuff from not doing adventurous things and doing spontaneous things, and potentially quitting that job that you like, but just to try something else, which is fine. And I'm probably one of those people, those stereotypes that I talked about before, that I'm relatively content.
So had it not been for your partner, you may not have even come out to the UK.
Honestly, yeah.
Oh, really?
Honestly, yeah.
Okay.
Which sad on my character. Bit of a negative on my character, but it would have just been, and I would have been happy, and that would have been fine.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's a negative. It's one of them ones where it's just sometimes you need someone to enlighten you or to show you another way.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's sometimes it's when you're, what's that saying? Is it you're learning when you're at the end of your comfort zone or something along those lines, right?
100%. And that's me. Like I had definitely a comfort zone.
Yeah.
And I wish I had have stepped out of it earlier than I did.
But as you said, you maybe had that laid back Australian way of doing things. Yeah. A bit of a random point, but you didn't cover cricket, but there was this cricketer called Mervyn Hughes. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
Oh, you do?
Moustache. Yeah. What was the Hughes?
Sorry, I'm not expecting you to answer that. I was just.
There's some story. He drank like 32 VB cans on a flight over from Australia.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah. So coming back to what you said earlier, and I really liked what you said. It was the mental aspect of recovery, and it's it's actually, like you said, there is the science side, but actually there's the practical and human side to it. Like, how has that been like something that you've worked on, and how has that been for you just generally? Like, how's that helped you progress?
You don't give it much weight especially when you first come into university and you're treating people. You see everyone is like bones and muscles and ligaments and all that type of stuff, and that's it.
Yeah.
And you treat bones and muscles and ligaments and all that kind of stuff. And then you really start to wonder why I've had this person with the same injury and that person with the same injury, and I've done the same thing and it turns out completely different.
Yeah.
And basically, if you just take no weight for the mental aspect of it, you will just get so incredibly varied results. And once you start to try to, as much as you can, it's not an easy thing to do, but you try to tune into where that person's at and what they actually believe is going on with their body and where they think they're at with their body.
It's that saying, isn't it? If you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you're right.
Yeah.
So you're right. You can only tell someone to do so much of a rehab program unless they don't do it.
And they don't do it.
Yeah.
That has been probably one of the largest things that's happened in the last 2 years for me.
That's brilliant.
Has been able to, trying to understand what this person actually believes is going on and what they think that they can achieve. And sometimes that's really hard because people don't want to tell you stuff that all the time.
True.
But I honestly think that's where the best clinicians do the best.
Do the work,
is because they pick that up really, really quickly, and they change stuff really, really quickly when they feel like it's not going to work. It's not an exact science. It's just
your judgment. Yeah.
Just your judgment. Yeah. And it comes with experience.
It's just, have you ever had a situation where you've tried everything and it's just not worked, and you've just, not given up, but like, what do you do, right?
All the time. Yeah, honestly, all the time. And I think that when that happens, you have to be okay with letting that person, giving the person the options to potentially go in different directions, or there's another person that you can see.
Right. It's just,
you can't have an ego about it, right? Yeah. It's about that person. Yeah. And if what you're doing, or they're just not, it's just not for you.
It might just not be clicking with
the person. Has to believe that it's going to work, and if it's not going to believe it's going to work with you, then you have to let them see someone else. Like, you can't have your ego around it. It's not not personal necessarily.
Yeah.
So you just have to give them those options.
Yeah, that's a really good way to
let them go.
Let them go. Let them do their own thing. No, but you're right. It's just finding different angles. Someone else might be suited to them from a personality perspective. What's your views on alternative medicine or like things Or is that like a really weird topic?
No, it's not. It's not a weird topic. The belief that something's going to work is such a massive thing.
Yeah,
and basically it gives us the biggest outcomes. If someone believes that this treatment's going to work, it is more likely to work. Research tells us that.
Wow.
Which is mind blowing. It doesn't make sense. It just tells you the psychological aspect.
Yeah.
Alternative medicine will always work for some people.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm never going to tell them that it doesn't.
Yeah.
If that person comes and tells me they've done the weirdest, wackiest treatment and they go, but I got better, I'm not going to tell them that it's a load of bullshit.
Yeah.
It works for them.
Yeah.
Fine.
Obviously going to like what's it, fortune tellers or like soothsayers, that's probably like...
I'm not going to recommend it. I'm not going to recommend it. But
yeah.
Whatever.
Whatever they post your vote, they'll post your vote. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If they say like, do you think that this will work? What does the research tell me? Will this work? I have to be honest and tell them it is unlikely to work.
Yeah.
But you can try it.
Yeah.
And if it works, fine. No problem.
Brilliant. Right.
Those skid off my nose.
All right. So yeah, I do like cupping, by the way. So
yeah, there you go. There you go. So like, it's one of those things. Cupping, acupuncture, or we all do it.
Yeah.
That's fine. We all have our own forms of those types of things. And for some people they'll work, and some people it won't work. And
you're right. It's just it just gives you that mental comfort sometimes, maybe. And you know what, that could be.
How much of it is a relaxation aspect of I get to sit down, away from my thoughts. Someone's going to do something relaxing to me. It feels good.
It must
get up and I feel better.
Yeah.
Massage, same thing. Maybe. There's probably no huge difference. We know that they all have an effect on the nervous system. Basically, reduces it, so quietens down our nervous system, which often reduces pain. It's just a different method of doing it.
Yeah, so in today's day and age, as we see a lot of athletes and elite athletes and sports people who are able to play into like 30s, mid-30s, and quite sort of into the senior years of their career. What's your view on that, and what techniques can we learn from them to be able to have a good life and also be able to do all the things that we want to do, despite not being athletes?
Really, really good question. We are getting really amazing at optimizing people's health and training really smart.
Yeah.
We're getting a lot better at understanding the aspects sort of outside of necessarily like training, but lifestyle and food and sleep and stress and what effect that has. There's nothing magical out there. Yes. Sportsmen that get to that age, that are doing really well, that have trained really, really smart their whole lives. Okay. And that's not just that they've just trained really hard. They've had periods where they've had breaks at really smart times. They've managed their injuries really, really well.
Yep.
They haven't rushed back after injuries, and they've made those really smart, intelligent decisions based on the long game. For a lot of patients, yourself included, when people come in with a problem and they go, how long is this going to take? And I say, this is going to take at least 3 months. People are blown away. And I understand that. And I understand that sounds like a really long amount of time. It's how long stuff takes. And there's no way around it. There's no magical things that speeds up that process. And it's about just being patient and doing it. And essentially the athletes that do really well, they're just the ones that do that. And they don't push themselves when they shouldn't be. Or
you can just play cricket and hopefully
you can just choose a...
I really like bowls. I like bowls. Yeah, that's actually quite fun.
Exactly. Choose a better sport. I
feel like that one, the one you have to mop the floor. What's it called? I don't know. Curling.
The curling. I think that's it. Just choose an easier sport. You can play that till you're 90 and no one cares. Just don't go and play rugby because you're probably not going to play that for that long.
And then lastly, just the last few questions really was just around what type of things you recommend, like in terms of workout, nutrition, anything generally that you found to be really effective in the last few years of like you practicing and advising clients for longevity and just general well-being.
Okay, the biggest thing for me that we don't do enough of is sleep.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
And we don't give it enough credit, and we don't prioritize it at all. But if there's a magic ball, and I said that there isn't one, if there is one, it's sleep.
Wow.
Okay. If you are someone that's getting less than 6 hours or around 6 hours of sleep a night, you are not working optimally. Okay. And that means you're a higher risk of injury. Absolutely.
Right.
You are higher risk of getting certain diseases in the future. We know that Alzheimer's is linked, dementia is linked as well. You're more likely to get all of these things. So there's one thing that nobody does well, but can do better at. And it's for some people it can be hard. But it's not that hard. It's not impossible to change. It's sleep. Honestly, it's the biggest one.
I guess that's just a modern lifestyle, working and stress and
and it makes sense. It makes sense. But if you start to prioritize that, you will honestly notice a change. And it's quite profound for a lot of people. If you come back to all the athletes, you'll if you talk to them, they'll tell you how much they sleep. And they sleep tons.
The other thing I wanted to ask you was actually about food. Obviously nutrition's a big thing and we all need to do better, but timing, food timing. We just passed a nice restaurant, smells lovely, feeling hungry now all of a sudden, coming to the end of the day. What's the optimal times for food?
Depends what you're trying to do. We just want to be generally healthy, and then to be fair.
Timing. So because we talked about sleep, but you know, sleep is important, but they say you should have a certain number of hours before. If you work backwards from that, so there's a certain time then, isn't there? A time window, would you not say, or how does it work for timing?
It's probably more, there's probably a lot of personal preference in that. Yes, like some people would struggle with eating before they go to bed because they need time to sort of digest, and that doesn't feel comfortable. But there is so much personal preference with eating. If you want to train, it makes sense that you want to eat afterwards, right? That makes total sense. Before, you probably wouldn't be eating really close to your train. That doesn't make sense because you're gonna need to digest that. You don't want to do that while you're training. So for most people, you're probably in that 2-3 hour block before you train. There is some evidence, although it's quite small, that it is helpful to eat enough protein after you train. That has kind of been blown a lot out of proportion. And you kind of probably heard that craze of you need to get your protein shake in within half an hour of your training. It's really, really small effects. But it does make sense that you would want to sort of refuel after you train. But the actual kind of protein aspect is probably a little bit blown out of proportion.
Zach, been great having you. Thank you so much.
No worries, mate.
And you take care, and I'll speak to you soon. See you later. Thank you
Thank you very much.